Hello and welcome to my review of the Spyderco Jester. This is a really interesting little knife in a lot of ways. It's apparently a sprint run from Spyderco, but having said that, it seems to have been around in this incarnation for quite a little while, and I note that it's still available on the Spyderco website, so I guess it's a sort of a long distance sprint. So if you're interested in one, don't panic. It looks like they've been around a while and probably will continue to be around for a while. Quite a small knife, suitable uses I guess for this one: keychain, possibly small EDC if you're in a situation where you can only carry a small knife, and particularly one like this without a pocket clip. It's very subtle and going to just ride down the bottom of your pocket. Would also be quite suitable for those who are into survival tins and want a knife for that application. Probably a little bit on the expensive side to tuck away in a survival tin, but a very high quality knife, and let's face it, in a survival situation you probably want a quality tool that's not going to let you down. So let's just talk about the size of this knife before we get any further. As mentioned, it's quite small. Now, it's not the smallest knife in the Spyderco range by a long shot, and if we were to compare it to, say, a Spyderco Bug, which we can sit there, suddenly the Jester looks like a bit of a giant. But if we got a little bit more realistic and compared it to a very well-known Spyderco, the Delica 4, and if we put that down, that gives you some idea of just how small the Jester in fact really is. In fact, if we were to close the Jester up, or actually what I should say is if I leave that open and close the Delica up, there's not a world of difference between open length and closed length in those two knives. So it gives you an idea of the size of this. And if we put it in here, and I've got quite large hands, you can see the actual size of it. Now, what is really interesting about this knife, and Spyderco, if you go to their website, you read the description, you'll see they talk a lot about the ergonomics. And I'd have to say I'm impressed. It's not all hype. Even with my big hands, I can grip it like so. You get a free finger grip, or more sort of a 2 3/4 grip, I suppose. But your fingers fit into that design quite nicely, into those little cutouts. Grips in there, and thumb sits very naturally on that section there back of the Spidey hole, which is nicely jimped with a fine jimping. There's also some more jimping up the front, which we'll talk about in a moment. So for what it is, it's actually not too bad. Again, jimping up the front there, which is going to allow your thumb to come up for cutting. The other thing it can be used for is you can bring your forefinger up there, and you've got this very nice, delicate, well, not delicate, but sharp point, and it's terrific for detail work. Far from being a delicate point, hopefully this will focus, it's actually quite strong given the thickness of the steel. So quite a good design. I'm not entirely sure how to describe the blade shape. It is in some ways reminiscent of reverse tanto, but I think it's just one of those blade shapes that kind of defies normal description. It's got a nice sweep of belly, and as you can imagine or appreciate from Spyderco, it came nice and sharp. VG10 steel. You'll have a look at the blade markings. We've of course got the Spyderco logo on there, and Spyderco VG10. The other side, it's of course made in Seiko City, Japan. Scales in this are grey textured G10, very classy. I like it. You could even pass this thing honestly for a small, very small in fact, gentleman's folder. It's beautifully finished. It's got a nice radius on the G10. You can see that the very nice, smooth, even finish all the way around there. It really is a very nicely put together knife. The liners are stainless steel, not skeletonized. They don't need to be. It's not like we need to shave weight off a knife of this size. Speaking of weight, comes in at a mammoth 1.1 ounces or 31 grams. So, as mentioned, sit this down the bottom of your pocket and you'll hardly know it's there. It's a lockback design. The lockback, I'm happy to say, is very high quality. Just check the in-handle retention, which is nice. Nice snap, no side-to-side wiggle, no up and down blade play. It seems to be a very, very stout design, and the finish, as I've said, and I'll just probably keep saying this about this knife, I'm very, very impressed with the finish. Everything, it just fits together nicely. The metal's nicely polished. They've done a terrific job on this, and I guess that's probably why you're paying that premium price for this particular knife. Sure, it's small, but if you appreciate quality, it's probably worth your money. We'll talk about some specs on the knife. I'll just pop it down whilst we do this. I have to zoom in because honestly it just about disappears, doesn't it? So specs on the knife, well, the blade we've talked about a little bit. It is hollow ground, and blade shape, let's call it a kind of sort of reverse tanto. The blade length is 1 15/16 of an inch, or to put it in metric, 49 millimeters. No, that's not the cutting edge. That's all the way from that point there to the tip. Now, I actually didn't measure the cutting edge. But we can do that. We'll just grab a tape measure here, and the cutting edge in inches is, well, you guys can see that for yourself there. And we'll put it on the millimetre side of things. Millimetres is more my territory. If I can get the camera to focus, probably around about 48 millimetres or something like that, cutting edge. So that just gives you the dimensions on that. The length of the knife opened as it sits there is 4 3/8 of an inch, or 111 millimetres. When it's closed up, it comes down to 2 7/16 of an inch, very awkward sizes these, or 62 millimetres. The deployment on the knife's really nice and smooth. Despite its size and despite the size of my hands, you can in fact open it one-handed. A little bit more tricky to close one-handed, it just needs a little bit of a bump down there. And you certainly want to be careful because despite its size, as mentioned, it is a very sharp little knife. No clip, as mentioned. It is designed purely to sit in your pocket or to go on a keychain. You could, if you wish to, put a paracord lanyard. I've got a little bit of 550 here. It hasn't been gutted, but it will just, I discovered there before, with a little bit of wiggling, get through that lanyard hole. Probably if you wanted to put a lanyard on, I'd probably gut the paracord. I think that'd probably be a better way to go. But reality is, I think it's probably not a knife to put a lanyard on, unless you are going to EDC it and you want to maybe put something on, maybe braid a lanyard, just to give you that little bit of extra purchase at the back of the handle. The quality of the knife, as I said there before, extremely high quality, both in the finish and the materials. Of course, the VG10 is a very good knife steel, but also in the design. Actually quite surprising just how good the ergos are on this tiny little knife. It's more useful than I thought it would be. I actually bought it as a curiosity piece just because I thought the design was really interesting, not expecting to find it live up to the hype and be as usable as it is. But basically I've become a convert. I think it's a great little thing. High grade, yeah, it's a small blade, so that's going to bring limitations. If you are obviously looking for something for a bit more hard use or whatever, you're probably better off something else. If you do have a need for a small folding knife and you really want to go a bit high quality, this is not a bad thing. I suppose what we should do, we've shown a couple of knives to compare the size against, just to, we'll throw in another couple. We've got a Victorinox Classic, which is again another very popular thing people hang on keychains. This is the Alox version, so we'll just open that out and we can put that there for comparison's sake. A little bit smaller overall, smaller in the scales as well. You'll also note that it's quite a bit thinner and significantly different in the blade. Now this is not a bad little keychain tool, but again it's light duty. This thing with the thickness of the blade and the construction will be a heavier duty tool by comparison. Another popular Victorinox, certainly I love this one, is the Cadet, and we might just have a look at the comparison of them closed down first. The Cadet suddenly looks quite gigantic, and the thickness, probably not a whole lot of difference in it, to be honest. And if we just fold the main blade out on the Cadet, well, main blade's only got one blade, and you can see the difference there. Suddenly, again, the Cadet looks like quite a big knife. But the overall cutting edge, again, the Cadet comes out on top, but as you'll see there, thinner steel. So this one will be a little bit more robust than possibly that knife there. But again, you know, if you're trying to sort of do crazy things with these sort of knives like lever and that sort of thing, that's not what they're designed for, and they will fail you. So that's a quick review on the little Jester. Is it worth the money? Is it worth buying? Well, that depends on yourself as an individual and your use and what you might want the knife for. Again, if you appreciate quality and you have a use for a small knife, this is definitely up amongst the top rungs of the modern small knives, but there's plenty of good options out there. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Bye for now.